Hello and welcome to your midweek feast to this Scotland Rugby News podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness Egg-Shaped, and I get to chat to my pal, Gavin Harper, editor extraordinaire from Scotland Rugby News. Hello, sir. Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, happy Wednesday. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. It's weird having a team announcement on a Wednesday.
The whole thing's completely thrown me all week. Having a game on a Scotland game on a Friday. So look, with these Six Nations fixtures on Friday nights, I might need to get used to it sooner rather than later. But it's been pretty weird. A Friday night in the middle of July.
Yeah, a Friday. But you look at our Friday nights in the middle of July and you think, imagine the spectator experience on a Friday night in the middle of July. How enjoyable that could be. Could you imagine if we had crowds in the Edinburgh Festival talking about growing a new audience? Let's have some URC games.
I mean,
we could be having all those tourists and visitors to Edinburgh coming along to the Hive or filling Murrayfield for Edinburgh against the Dragons.
Like, how good would that be as opposed to playing it on the Friday before the Six Nations with an 8 o'clock kickoff, and it's, the rain's coming in sideways. Like, it just would make such a difference to the whole thing. The game, the players would enjoy. Like, I just think it would make. Anyway, we're digressing already, but yeah, it would be class.
We are digressing. My fault. Before we get to the Scotland team announcement, a quick word from our sponsor. Scotland Rugby News podcast is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to S1 Jobs and upload your CV tonight. With thousands of jobs across Scotland, you'll find the one for you at S1 Jobs. So start your search today. So Scotland, this, as you say, it's weird. You kind of wake up and the team's been announced because of the time differences. There's been a lot of reflection. There's been a lot of comments. The first comment I saw when I woke up on Saturday morning was Townsend must go now. And I thought, oh, come on. we can't be there in the middle of a tour a year out for it. That just, come on. Anyway, it was a tough old ride, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was tough. I thought, look, first thing, I think Fiji were excellent. I think they could have and probably should have been out of sight by half time. They wasted loads and loads of chances in the first half, and there was one big Bill Mata dropped almost on the line that would have put them well clear just before half time. So from that point of view, it always felt like Scotland were kind of hanging on, but start of the second half, Tom Jordan scored. You thought, right, okay, they've sort of got themselves back in the game, at least on the scoreboard. And then from there, it just went nowhere. And I don't think, I'm not sure Gregor will say as much. I don't think he got enough from the bench. I think he got the makeup of the bench wrong in terms of the selection with the 5-3 instead of 6-2. I think the discipline was atrocious, clearly. Thankfully, Darcy's red card never amounted to any more than that. And I think by the time he went off, the game was probably, that penalty try kind of killed the game. It was really poor. I think for that to be the kind of the be-all and end-all game of the tour and to have lost it quite as convincingly as Scotland did is not great, to be honest. It's now we're trying to salvage something from a tour by beating Samoa, who until the weekend there were ranked below. I don't mean to keep having a pop at Wales, but they were ranked below Wales, and even with 10 players missing, like I would expect Scotland to win this weekend. But yeah, it kind of feels a bit flat because the big game has ended in disappointment again.
Some of the other comments I read, which also kind of made me laugh, there was somebody saying we shouldn't have toured when we're missing so many players. But then we're back to, well, let's go on tour Chile, Canada, America, and not learn anything again. This tour was tough and we were excited about it, and then it's like the toys go out the pram because we lose the game that we really wanted to win. We've still got a game to win 3 players have been called up to the Lions, which hopefully is a positive thing for them and for Scotland to add to those stocks. But the disappointing thing is that it seemed to go so wrong. And you kept waiting for them to go, right, okay, now it's time. Right, okay, this is the thing that's going to change it and we're going to get back into the game. And it never really came.
Yeah, and I think the frustration for me, and I've actually written a piece that we published on the site tomorrow, the frustration for me about this is that's not the first time that's happened recently. You know, post 2023 World Cup, there have been games when you've said, okay, well, there's an obvious thing to fix here. On Saturday, it was the discipline. Scotland just don't do it. And there are enough players. You know, if you look through that team, obviously Rory Darge was captain, Jamie Ritchie's been captain, Gilco's been captain, Kyle Staines, the Glasgow captain. There are enough players that have got the requisite experience to surely be able to get everybody together and say, look, we're obviously on the wrong side of this here. Like, let's just, I know it comes with pressure. I know it's difficult with pressure. But having watched the game back twice now, there aren't, like, the breakdown was a mess. But there's so many daft penalties for, like, offsides and just nothing penalties. And then the number of them that come one after the other, it's just like, that's the maddening part, is that this keeps happening, and for some reason the players don't seem to kind of take heed of these patterns.
You mentioned the people that have had formal roles of being captain. You've also got people in there that have won stuff and won some big stuff in England and in the URC. There's players in there with a heap of experience, and you just kept thinking, that's what I mean. You just kept thinking it's going to kick in, right? TJ scores, right? Here we go. Right, they've had their cage rattled. Now we're good to go, and it just never really happened. And you said this right at the beginning. It feels flat, and that's exactly how it feels. And to say a Scotland team lacked discipline, you've heard those things from Fiji or Tonga or France, or I can't remember the last time we said the thing to fix for Scotland was discipline.
I mean, Ben O'Keefe, like the Cardiff game last February, Ben O'Keefe was the referee, and we got on the wrong side of him in the second half and nearly threw away 26 points to a Wales team that then could hardly beat a stick. Like, I mean, it was terrible for an international team, and now we're at the weekend. It was exactly the same. Now, I don't know what's going on in the preparation in there, but Scotland must prepare for a referee. So you've surely done your homework and your due diligence on, okay, here are the things he's hot on, and here are the things not to do to get on the case kind of the wrong side of him. And I criticised George Horne after the game as much as I know you love him, but with about 10 minutes to go, Scotland gave away a penalty, and he chirped back at the referee. You could hear it over the TV. And I thought, like, George Horne's another experienced player, won stuff with Glasgow. Like, we've all been in situations where you're frustrated, but in an international, you need to not bite back at the guy who you've got on the wrong side of. You're down a man already. You know, if he marches Scotland back 10 metres, it's probably a material, but it's that lack of planning or lack of ability to adjust, and the how inflexible they are to dealing with a problem on the fly, essentially, without it being kind of coached into them. That's my frustration, I think.
Yeah, I think there's lots of frustrations about the game, and some of them will be fixed just by it not being Fiji away to Fiji. And there was that brilliant message for Simon Raulini, who's saying, you know, fair play to Scotland for coming to play. I think, as well as there not being a whole heap of money by taking your squad to Fiji, it's such a difficult place to go that certain nations will be thinking, hang on, I didn't really want to go there and have Fiji do Fiji to me. So I'm so proud that Scotland have gone. And I really, as I said right at the beginning, I wish I was on this tour. The Maori and Whangarei, Fiji and Fiji, Samoa, Eden Park. I think it's an amazing tour to be part of, whether they win or lose. As a supporter, I would have loved that. And I still wish I was there. The bit for Fiji, though, like flipping this on its head, how good are Fiji? And we say this a lot. If they had access to their players and if they had time and if they were able to tour and if people went and played them, Fiji could be so much better than they are, and they're really good.
Yeah, totally. That's the other point to it. Like, there's some parts of the game, like why Nicolo makes the break from his own 22, and you're like, no other team, any other team in the world, even Duhan playing against the made-up Australia, New Zealand invitational Mickey Mouse team, even he kicked the ball at one point from his own 22. Like, no other team just say, I'll just have a crack here. And they, more often than not, Fiji now make something of that, because they then have a moment of madness, a moment of magic. They then go back to what is quite a good structure, but they've got so many players playing. Fergus Burke talked about this, playing in the Fijian Drua in Super Rugby, that they actually do now play at a high level. All of them, it's not like there's a handful playing in France, and we probably see that more with the Samoa team for Friday. There's a few names that probably stand out to people, but they're, the majority of that team would take a bit of researching. Whereas right across the board, and even players that aren't in the 23, Fiji have got like proper world-class players. And I think you're right. They could be so much better, and they're already very, very good. And like, I think the first thing, as I said before, like, they deserve to win that game, and they probably deserve to win it by a much bigger margin than they did. And Scotland ultimately can have no complaints with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. So let's turn our attention. Let's look ahead. Scotland team announced today, because, as we said, it's a Friday game, which is it's a bit all over the show for most of us. I'm interested by the team selection. He's changed his tune. You were chirping about a 6-2 bench, and now that's what we've got. Obviously, Suz and Ashy are hoping they get through it. Scotland win, and then they can board the flight to the Lions. Pretty proud of themselves. They'll be giving each other a cuddle as they go into the scrum to make sure they look after each other, that they get through it. I did wonder if Turner was going to start at hooker, but it looks like this is the way to go. Backline I'm interested in. Obviously, it's never played together before. It's a kind of wait and see, isn't it? Darge is still in there. Fagerson, Gilco, there's experience in there. Ashy and Suz, there's experience in there, but it's a real brand new backline. And Rory Hutchison, we've been talking about for a long time, wasn't in the initial squad, and now he's starting at 13 in a test that they have to win.
Yeah, this is it. And I think I said this, or I almost said this earlier, but like, losing on Friday is not an option for Scotland. Like, that would be totally unforgivable. So there is, while it feels a bit flat, and I do expect them to beat Samoa and probably beat them quite comfortably in the end, like, there is a bit of pressure on this now because they've lost the game in Fiji. And I think that midfield, Stafford and Hutch, went well. Stafford and Hutch sounds like a bad TV program. It's like a spin-off.
Like that. I think it sounds like a good TV program.
Yeah. They went well against the Maori. I thought they kind of were a good blend. So obviously it kind of makes sense. I thought I really like Cam Redpath, and just him at 13 didn't really work against Fiji. And Tom Jordan's obviously picked up a broken arm or a broken wrist, so he misses out. Again, back three, Kyle Steyn, Kyle Rowe. you could have moved Kyle Rowe on the wing and given Harry Patterson or Ollie Smith a go at 15, but again, it probably says how important Gregor and the coaches view this game now, that this seems to be probably the next strongest team. And I think, yeah, that's probably echoed by the selection of the two guys who are about to join the Lions squad. Gilco's still there, Darge, obviously, Matt Fagerson's asked to go again despite picking up a knock at the end of the game. I thought Andy Onyama Christie was excellent against the Maori, so good to get him back in for another cap. And then there's still a bit on the bench, obviously the 6-2 bench. It's a wee bit of a surprise to me that maybe Bayliss hasn't snuck on there because he's played a bit in the backs. And again, George Horn and Adam Hastings, you think they did so well in that Maori game. I thought Fergus Burke, when he had chances, looked decent against Fiji, but again, given the importance of the game, I kind of half expected Gregor to go back to more experienced halfbacks and give Dobie and Burke a run off the bench. But yeah, look, there's enough in that Scotland team, I think, that they should win. But Samoa aren't what they used to be, but I still think it'll be mighty physical and they'll be flying into every contact. And but I just think they might run out of steam where kind of Fiji didn't.
I'm just intrigued. Like now, you guys have picked your Lions teams for tomorrow. I see O'Driscoll's picked his and Flatman's picked his, and our opinions didn't matter. It's trying to figure. Like, I want to know. I would love to know more for Gregor about these selections. When you look at last week's team, obviously Darcy's not there. Brand new centres from the starting team last week. Redpath not there. Jordan breaking is gutting for him. Kyle Steyn jumps onto the other wing. We're missing Jamie Ritchie. So there's changes that make sense, but then you don't have Hepburn and Hurd coming off the bench. You've got Macbeth and Richardson in this way we spoke about, that it seemed like there was front rows, and I don't know where we're going with this. That's, I think, what I'm trying to get at. And I hate thinking like that, because I would rather we just pick the best team for the next game, because that's how international rugby should be. Is this the best team that's available?
Yeah, and I think you see that with South Africa, don't you? That, there was a game 2 weeks ago and they beat Italy quite comfortably. Now, they could have made a whole raft of changes and given guys first caps in the second Italy game, but they chose not to. And I know their depth is incomparable to Scotland's, but they went really strong and it worked. They won 45-0 at the weekend, and now they've got almost a development game where they're able to. But South Africa maybe have one of them a season. It feels like Scotland have played a lot of them over the last 18 months. And I think you're right. I would rather, I'm not sure, is Gregor Brown and Grant Gilchrist a combination that's going to be about till the next World Cup? Where does Andy Onyama Christie fit in the back row? I couldn't draw up a back row pecking order and confidently fit in Onyama Christie and Bayliss and people who aren't on the tour, Bradbury and Crosby, and I just don't have no perception of that. I spend all day writing and talking about rugby. So, you're right. It would be nice to have a bit more kind of clarity on where it's all going. Just a point before we move on completely from Fiji. Fiji should have played the Lions instead of the silly invitational, so it probably echoes what I said earlier. Look, I think that would be how good would that be to see? And I know it probably wouldn't take place in Fiji.
Are you calling Scotland a silly invitational side, or do you mean the Lions shouldn't be playing silly invitational side?
Yeah, I think it's the Lions shouldn't be playing silly invitational. And I actually was quite looking forward to that Lions game at the weekend. And then the AUNZ team were just nothing.
Yeah,
that was just such a damp squib. Although I enjoyed seeing the Scottish boys do well. But
I totally agree. I totally agree with this, though. It would be, I would like to see them play Fiji, and when you hear of tours gone by, they played Fiji and then they flew to America and played America and Canada on their way home for the sake of it, so that they could have hot dogs on their way home. I think that would be class if they played Fiji and Tonga and Samoa in the build up to Australia.
And I know, like, I was listening to another podcast that had wee Greek on it earlier, and he was saying, or the point that was being made generally there was, rugby's an attritional sport, and do you need essentially more test matches? These warm-up games are good for getting systems in and building cohesion, and like how much you've coached and played. I've played at a terrible level, but like nobody ever learns anything from games you win 60, 70-0. Like it's, and you know, and teams don't, for some of these Australian guys, this will be the biggest games of their career if they don't kind of make it above Super Rugby. But what do you get out of that? You get a jersey at the end of it, and you get to say I played against the Lions, but that's it. Yeah, I don't really get that. I think, to go back to Scotland point, what does George Horn have to do?
I'm coming in strong here. I'm coming in strong here to disagree with that. I think those teams, but the problem is the tours now are too short. There was a place for those teams, and what they've tried to do is keep those teams, but they've shortened it, which means the preparation is hindered when you're trying to give 38 folk a decent run before a test match. You know, when they went to South Africa, even in '97, they played more games. The days of them going away for 3 months are long gone. But there's lots more in that. Sorry, let's get back to Scotland. I digress.
We can go over Lion stuff. What does George Horn have to do? Brilliant against the Maori, and now he's been dropped. Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's kind of what we're saying, though. That's kind of what we're saying. What is the selection? Is it because Dobie is the future? And Horney is kind of now, you know, obviously with Ben White being away, but that's what I don't know. I don't know what the selection criteria are. I don't know what the purpose of this is. The purpose of last year's tour was almost clearer than this one, even though it brought greater frustration. But at least we knew it was development. It was boys being capped, so they were Scottish. It was all though this one I just find more difficult to figure out how it's working. It was all about seeding so that we were well placed for the World Cup. Well, we've lost to Fiji and we've gone down in the seeding. So has our objective of the tour not been met? But was the objective of the tour for those boys to go and play at that? I don't know. And the selection, so coming to Power Bite 92's point, I don't know. I don't know what George Horn has to do, and hopefully George Horn does. But by the same token, what does Jamie Dobie have to do? And they're both at the same club.
Yeah, and you know, when Glasgow were going to win a URC title, Jamie Dobie was coming on the wing and helping them see out games, and he's good in the air. And Gregor, when we spoke to him at the turn of the year, was talking about Jamie Dobie being great in the air and being able to, you know, being as good on the wing as he is at 9. And now all of a sudden, Dobie feels like he might be second choice at 9. And I'm not sure where that leaves George Horn, who obviously has a lot of caps, but doesn't have a lot of starts, particularly in big games. And the most recent one would have been in Italy, last Six Nations, and that didn't go that well. So it doesn't make sense, and there's not enough clarity around this is exactly why, and this is, you know, and some of those conversations will be, you know, what does George Horn have to do? Hopefully you're right, George Horn knows that, but we certainly don't, which I think is, you know, and just to go back to your point about the Lions, and I know this would be more difficult given Scotland have kind of been in New Zealand, then gone to Fiji, then gone back to New Zealand, and there was internal flights in Fiji and all that kind of stuff. But I would have loved to have seen there been scope there for a midweek game somewhere. Even if it's in the middle of next week, and I know that'll eat into pre-season and all that stuff, but there's guys. Paddy Harrison's got half an hour off the bench against the Maori, and that's it. Gus Warr hasn't played at all. You start to wonder what the point is if you're just there making up numbers, And I think that's the point about this Lions squad and the call-ups for Darcy. And, you would like to think all these guys have got realistic chances of making a test team. All the guys that were in the original squad. But now you're basically saying to half a dozen guys, by the way, you're coming in and you are essentially the geography 6. You are cover, and you get all, we'll not treat you like we treated the 6 in 2017, but the chances of you making a big impact are slim.
I do wonder though about Darcy going early, and with the way they are in the back three at the moment, I do wonder if Darcy gets to start and gets to play a significant amount of game time, because then it means at least one player left.
Oh.
Hello, you there?
I am here. You're back.
Apologies, I don't know what happened there. You there?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, that was quite strange. You just
there, but I'm back. I'd had enough. Yeah, I can't remember where I was. Where was I?
I was rambling on about. You were talking about Darcy, hopefully getting a chance, and I think you're probably right. Darcy would like is the one.
I think that's where it means one less player has to go through, even if it's just being in part of the warm-up and being involved in the squad, and they get to stand down and rest. With Ashy and Suz, I think the best it can be hoped for is that they get a shot off the bench to give somebody half an hour less, and potentially 2 front rowers get to sit with their feet up and not be part of the 20 boys that go against the starting team and all that kind of thing. So I think there's a chance, but also who knows what's going to happen. They've suffered quite a few injuries, and although they might be the geography 6 and they might not be the next cabs off the rank, if they're the ones who are in the squad, they know what's going on, and something happens for test 2 or 3, maybe they are the ones that get the shot. I think it would be a long, I don't know. If they're there, then Ewan Ashman on the bench with Jamie George starting. Suz has been there before, so maybe he does get another shot. But hopefully, everybody's hoping Darcy gets the go. I think we were surprised when Ashy and Suz got the call, but brilliant for Scotland and amazing for them.
Yeah, and I think you're right. They might not necessarily be the next cabs off the rank. I think, as you said earlier, the 2 that are playing on Friday will be, first of all, desperate that they come through that unscathed with a win, and then they can head to Australia. I think, I totally echo what you say. I think you're right that they'll be probably off the bench and used for, training rotations and stuff like that. But it'll be a bit of a job, that, because the kind of guys who came in 2017 were, by all accounts, sort of ostracised from the main squad. So Maro and the other leaders are going to have a bit of work to do. But I think from Suz and Ashman's point of view, it certainly helps. There's so many Scots, and then Thomas Clarkson's got all his Leinster teammates there, so I'm sure he'll fit in fine with Jamie Osborne as well, and Jamie George. Obviously, it helps that he went to Portugal before they left for Australia. So I can see the logic behind all of it, but if you were Nicky Smith or Dowie Lake, I think you'd be pretty frustrated, and I can see that. But it wouldn't surprise me if this had been in the planning for a while.
No, I think so, but I also think Scotland are in a different position than they were the last time. This is a Scotland team that people respect and have performed well. Us as a URC winner, and more Scots there gives them a bit more. There's more people to settle them in and vouch for them and stick up for them and all those things. And those boys are looking at, well, hang on, I want to play in the test. If they're going to come in and play in this midweek game, that's got to be good news for me. I certainly hope so. So a Scotland win against Samoa is the prediction. We're hoping for some big performances from the forward pack, firstly.
Yes, to all of that. We've appeared to have lost Bruce again. I'll see if he rejoins in a couple of seconds. Apologies for our...
yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you are here?
Yeah, I am here. Listen, fella, good to see you. Scotland to beat Samoa, and we're all good. And then life's even better. And then we can come back and talk about the Lions tomorrow, and I'll sort my Wi-Fi connection. How's that sound?
That sounds great to me. I'll certainly look into my Wi-Fi too, in case the error's on my side. But yeah, if you could have a look at yours, then we'll give everybody a smooth and seamless chat about the Lions team tomorrow evening, and then we'll be back as well next week.
Yeah. Last word from our sponsor. The Scotland Rugby News podcast is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Scotland, you'll find the one, S1 Jobs. So go and start your search right now. Thanks, everyone. Good to see you. We'll be back tomorrow for another short 8 to talk all about the Lions when the team has been announced. And hopefully there's going to be a bundle of Scots in it. But in the meantime, have a great evening. Sleep tight. See you tomorrow.